why do Vulcans line up with 3 fingers?
Why?
Control, Alt, Delete.
I will try to scoot my left.
I can do it.
We have our name?
Your name tag is in front of you there.
Oh, excuse me.
No, it's been stolen.
That's a Swedish Christmas bread.
Mad Hatter's Tea Party. Everyone shift one space. Right.
It'll get exciting for you soon. Hi. So
Now that we actually have the entire panel here.
do we outnumber them?
Not at all.
Darn.
They are legion. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of kick this off, and we're welcome to the Vanity, or self-publishing from Vanity Legitimacy panel. And so first I'm going to have everyone go down the way here and kind of introduce themselves and why they think they're on this panel.
Oh, I see. Hold on, I need to check one thing. All right. I wanted to get
Snipe bidding's easier.
I just needed to get to verify my facts before spouting off in public like some other people. My name is Todd Gallowglas. I'm a professional storyteller at Renaissance fairs. That's not as cool as it sounds because sometimes it rains. I used my storytelling show at Renaissance fairs to launch my self-published indie book career, and currently I have 5 books on Amazon bestseller lists.
Wow.
Well, thank you.
One of which is Halloween Jack and the Devil's Gate, and we'll probably be talking about this, and which is a YA steampunk fantasy adventure, and then my Tears of Rage series. All 3 of these are in the top 100 dark fantasy list right now. And so that's kind of, I think, why I'm here.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Reynolds. I'm technically the artist guest, but ironically, a friend of mine and I never write a book with a friend, they say, but it worked. A friend of mine, and he's the author. I did all of his illustrations. However, I did 99.9% of the like technical input and the idea input. So I consider it my book as well. So we have a book that we did, and it's our only book so far, but it's pretty cool. So it counts, and it was self-published, so that counts. There you go. And I forgot to bring it with me after I left it down there in the art show.
Hi, my name is John. I write as J.M. Perkins. I'm here on this panel because I asked to be on this panel. The reason I'm a little qualified to be on this panel is I used a successful Kickstarter campaign to print my first novel, which you can see right here. It's called Chemo: How I Learned to Kill.
Yeah, we used Kickstarter too. Kickstarter, like I said, the part of it sounds like a pun kicks butt. It really is cool. It's amazing how many people will support you.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
No, Kickstarter.
Instantly.
Kickstarter is great. Although I think that it's a hard place to start if you're not known already.
Yeah.
There's got to be some basis for it already. My name is Lynn Maudlin, and I'm here, I think probably because of my involvement with Diana Gleyer's Clay in the Potter's Hands book, which we did initially through Lulu, and then, you know, taking it through and doing it as doing Smashwords and the meat grinder, and so it's available in all the digital formats, and I was involved in all of that. So I've been on the guts side of the process, and I'm very excited. I think it's a very exciting time to be a content creator. So that's my word on the matter.
Hi, I'm Ellen, and I'm probably here because I'm just starting into self-publishing after tired of hearing for years from agents, you're not quite what we're looking for. So I have an ebook up, and everybody's telling me, we want the real thing. We want the real thing. So now I'm going to have it published in hard copy, and then I'm going to tell them, you better buy it. You better buy it.
That's mandatory. And in fact, have you considered doing a print-on-demand service?
Yeah, it's create account. That's what I'm going for. I'm waiting for my artist to get back to me.
Yeah,
It seems like you have to do a different type of cover every time.
I think that we just touched upon one of the reasons it's so hard to have a conversation about self-publishing nowadays, because it can mean so many different things. It can mean you threw up a chapter of your book on Smashwords. It can mean you're on Amazon bestseller list. It can mean you printed 50 copies and you are going to conventions. It can mean you have it on print on demand. There's so many different ways to approach it and so many different technologies that, I mean, that's part of what makes it difficult to talk about right there.
And I'll kind of introduce myself. Just
Oh, for you.
That's all right. That's all right. And my name is Neal Hallford, and I'm a game author, filmmaker, and also author. I actually have an old-fashioned, published through a publisher book that was nonfiction. But recently actually decided that I was going to take a crack at the ebook world because I had several friends that were publishing that way, and so I said, I'm going to try this out myself. And so just recently, earlier this year, I published my first ebook on Amazon. It's not genre at all, but it is kind of a fascinating story. That's kind of a long story to tell. Anyway, so first of all, to kind of just kind of spin off of what we're talking about is first of all, in kind of I'd like to have each of you kind of talk about, was there a specific reason that you decided to make the leap from from doing more the traditional go to the publisher, get permission for them to publish, to doing it yourself? Do you have a specific moment or something that happened that kind of triggered that leap?
Oh, are you looking?
You go outside.
All right. Okay. Well, so off and on, since I was 17, I've been a storyteller at Renaissance fairs. I do the pass the hat thing. And I had been getting out of that more and more and more as I've gotten older and older. And I went and got an English degree with a focus in creative writing with the proviso recently. I did that, I think I got my degree in 2009. And the idea was that I was going to be an English teacher in California. When I went back to school, my wife encouraged me to go back to school. When I went back to school, there were lots of teaching jobs. When I got out of school, there weren't so many teaching jobs. So I really kind of started building the storytelling business again as a way to just to, on the weekends, to make ends meet. And I'd been back at that for 2 years, really full-time pushing and pushing and pushing, when my wife and 2 friends sent me this article about this Amanda Hawking chick who was making an extraordinary amount of money through self-publishing, even at selling some of her books for only 99 cents. And I was like, oh my God, that's incredible. And then I thought, I have this platform to push out a product, and I'm always looking for more ways, because as I tell people, I'm kind of a whore with my show, is to figure out how to make it make more money. And at first I wanted to do like DVDs and everything, and I was like, well, they've just seen the show, why would they buy a DVD if they're doing the show? So I started doing the ebook thing, and then I went into print on demand, and so now I have my books that I can, and so now I don't have a storytelling show. I have a thinly disguised commercial that looks like a storytelling show. Where ultimately the goal is to get people to buy my books. And last year in 2000, what year are we now? In 2011, I went to the World Science Fiction Convention in Reno. And it was really kind of I do that self-publishing thing. But I do it for a storytelling show. And this year I went to the World Science Fiction Convention, and I'm out selling people like Laurel K. Hamilton, and Charlene Harris, and Jim Butcher, and when I'm really doing well, Brandon Sanderson. And so it's not quite I do that self-publishing thing. And so it's exciting, the tone of the conversation from last year to this year at WorldCon, when even Neil Patrick Hayden, Patrick and Teresa Nielsen Hayden, there we go. the senior editor at Tor is saying, well, there's nothing wrong with self-publishing. You
Different
know that the world is changing when he says, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And I knew he hated saying it, but that he has to put the smile on when he does say that.
And a related story, hell froze over.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's where I went into it.
How about you?
Actually, like I said, I wasn't the writer. I wish I was. I do a lot of things visually, but the guy I know says he's actually a writer. I mean, he's published. Unfortunately, he does things like art history books, and he goes. A lot of his stuff is published in Europe and whatnot. But he came to me and he says, I really want to write this novel. This thing's been driving me nuts ever since you sent me some of this artwork. I said, okay. So he did a novel, and I'm trying to talk him into actually going into bigger marketing, because what he wanted to do originally, his intention was to market it through art galleries, because he wanted to also do a companion color book where you can take it apart. If you're in a gallery, you can either frame it or sell it as an art book. And of course, gallery is a very small market, so I'm trying to talk him into going into some of the library services and going, look, market to them. But he did a pretty good job. It's hardback and paperback and online, because everybody says, well, do you have it? Can you buy it for my Kindle, or can you get? Yes, you can now. But it's pretty cool. And like I said, this is my first experience, but it's been pretty interesting. The book signing in Vegas was cool. That was where we had the first book signing, because we had a corporate sponsor at a art trade show. So had a booth set up there. It was kind of.
I want to ask, should you use like a Sharpie when you're signing on a Kindle?
Yeah. Engraving tool.
Kindlegraph.com. www.kindlegraph.com.
Really? Seriously?
Yes, you can go to Kindlegraph, and then you can type in the name of the book, and they will send an email to the author if the author is signed up with Kindlegraph, where it's not the author's actual signature, but it will show up on the print cover of the book that you have.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, so you can get your ebook copies of Kindle books.
I have to admit, now I have one. I haven't had it very long. Now I'm going to have to go through and actually download my own book and sign it.
That is priceless. Thank you.
You're welcome. The author has to sign up for Kindlegraph and be part of that service.
That is
Everything,
but it just makes me chuckle all over.
Oh yeah, no, it should.
As for me and my path, I'm actually agnostic about the whole self-publishing versus traditional publishing thing. I think both definitely have their advantages.
Absolutely.
I sold 5 short stories this year to traditional print magazines and venues. So I'm not just doing stuff myself, but the novel I put out, and I did a Kickstarter because I could. And I guess I think the thing that pushed me towards it is the power differentials. I don't think that editors and agents are bad people at all. It's just they get so many submissions, and you're at such a disadvantage power-wise that I think you really have to be creative getting their attention. And my understanding is, even if you want to do traditional publishing, more and more publishers, agents are looking to buy an audience.
Yes.
So you don't go to them with your great story, you go to them with math. And you say, this many people have bought my book, my blog gets this many hits.
Unless you're
That's
an
just
actor.
business.
Unless you're an actor or actress in Hollywood, then you write all the books you want.
Well, you got ghostwrite already.
Yeah, or especially the children's books. Like, you're not a celebrity, you're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, so it's literally, who knows what's going to happen. I'm not wedded to, it's not an either or choice for me. It's what makes sense at the moment, and it's about being paid to tell stories.
Sure. Sure.
Part of my problem, sorry to interrupt you, part of my problem was that they've been told over and over and over again. Now I'm beginning to find it from a lot of people who are what I call legitimate authors with agents and everything. That's not 100% true. They said, oh, well, if such and such publishes a novel, no matter how much input you have, they're not going to accept your artwork. They're going to have their stock people that do their own artwork. And now I realize that's not true. They're just going to make sure that they get somebody who actually can draw, instead of saying, I have my Aunt Tilly who can do the illustrations because she's my relative. Yeah, it's like, no, I'm a professional illustrator. It's cool.
Well,
And I found, like I said, I have 2 or 3 friends that I know that are actually, authors that have agents. They go, no. If you can present them with decent artwork, they'll usually take it. Not always, but some will. So.
yeah. The thing that I've observed is that there are good reasons for going different ways at different times. My friend whose book we did as a self-published book, and then, both as print on demand and then as a digital book, Her previous book is a scholarly work through Kent State University Press, you know. And so you need a scholarly publisher for a scholarly work of that sort. You're not going to get the attention that you need. You're not going to get the reviews that you need, etc. If she'd simply done it herself. As frustrating as it was to work with the editor that got assigned to her project, there was some nightmare stuff that happened there, but those are her stories to tell or not, as she chooses. But this other book was a smaller book, and she, 5 years or so earlier, she kind of sent it around, and various people had various ideas about it, and one wanted to go a certain way and make it sort of a coffee table book, and somebody else was wanting to go another way, and none of them felt right to her. And in the end, she thought, you know what, I just want to do it this way because I want to control how it looks. And, when you're doing print on demand, you can, in fact, control every aspect of that. You can put 4 words on a page if you want to. It may not be cost effective, but you can do it. So there are really different situations that call for going the traditional route or going the self-published route. What I'm glad to see, because, obviously 50 years ago, you talked about self-publishing, it was Vanity Press. Because at that point in time, you're only talking about big physical printing machines. So, you're going to have to print up X many copies. I mean, nobody ever got 1 copy of a book made. They'd maybe get 100 of them made, and they'd cost you, $200 each or whatever it was. And so that's why it was literally Vanity Press, because you were paying for the book to be made. The thing that I do find interesting, and we haven't worked this out yet, is that publishers did serve as a threshold, and you just referenced this, Laura, about the artwork quality. They served as a threshold for quality, that if it really totally sucked, it wasn't going to get printed unless it was Vanity Press. And now, when you can buy a digital book, but if you don't know the person that you're buying from, if you don't know the author, you may or may not get a product which is worth reading. And even at 99 cents, you may feel like, oh, that was a total waste of time. So, it's nice when there's a threshold. And yet, it's an exciting time to be without a threshold. I mean, it's just it's a changeable time.
Now, a quick point to your point. Certainly, traditionally, publishers served as a slush pile filter.
Yes.
Because
yes.
there are people who are terrible writers, there are people who are insane, and lots of people putting out lots of words every year.
Yes.
And traditionally, publishers were a filter of that. What's interesting is so many of the services that we traditionally associate with publishers, promotion, sorting with slush, they've exported onto other things. Perfect example, now they more rely on agents to be those slush sorters for them. And when it comes to marketing and promotion, more and more, especially for new authors, that gets pushed on to the author. Anyway, sorry, you were going to go.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that I was actually embarrassed into doing this by people coming up to me at cons and other things saying, where's your novel? I want to buy it. Well, not published.
But I think that's great. I think that's a great response to people saying, I want to read your work.
And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it, because I've had publishers, editors, agents, authors tell me for years, yes, you're a very good writer. Unfortunately, this is not what we want at this time, or this is not what we need at this time, or we're full at this time, or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. Because they're also dealing with the realities of the cost of print, and I mean, they're dealing with their own fiscal realities. And so the fact that you can do this and make it available as a digital book, which costs you nothing but a certain amount of time and labor, and you can make it available as a print-on-demand book, which people, if they want it, they can buy it as a physical book.
I'll say, hey, here it is.
Perfect.
And my advertisement on my back.
That's
You want
right.
it, you can
I
get
think
it
it's
now.
great.
If they'd said, well, you suck, I would have found something else to do. But they never did. After 5 honorable mentions of the writers of the future, she says, well, you can't win this one.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, no,
You know, I sometimes think too, if they're limited by creativity, I think that they're so focused, I mean, which is their job, they're focused on what can I sell and make money.
Yes.
And they're afraid to try something that's different, or they're afraid to, it's like, it's not the flavor of the month. Like if all the popular books right now are about, let's say, zombies, and you have a really, really good book, but it's about something else, they may or may not look at it. Then we're going to think, this isn't current. We're not going to fool with this stuff.
Or you write a great zombie book and then like the market's saturated.
Yeah.
That's
We're not
right.
going to publish it.
Right.
because-
That's right.
yeah.
There's a young lady right in the back that here has had her hand up, so thank you for being patient. So.
Thank you. For the longest time, I've been trying to figure out how to print my books and stories in a book without it being too much money. Just like you said before, it's like $100 just to print one book. And also, I'm trying to figure out where and how I can make the book downloadable onto different devices where I can actually get paid for each download, rather than just putting a download link on my website.
Yeah.
What?
There are a lot of different services that you can do. You can go to Smashwords. Within I'm very, very active in the indie writer community. Smashwords is, be cautious of using Smashwords these days because it's getting harder and harder and harder to get money from them. But you can go directly to like Amazon or Barnes & Noble and upload your books. There's a service called BookBaby, which will do file conversions for all the major retailers for you at $99 per book. And they will even work with you for cover art, and then they will just send you the money. You pick a threshold, like say every time my account gets to $100 across all the retailers, they'll just send you a direct deposit. There you can go to Lulu for print on demand. You can go to Lulu. You can go to CreateSpace. You can go to BookBaby. Also has a print on demand. There's several others that you can do.
I think most of them do both.
Yeah.
Lulu will also do digital, but their digital trend, their changeover isn't very good. The thing that's good about Smashwords, and that I'd still go with Smashwords, is that they will generate all the different types, and then you take it and you put it up on Amazon. You send it. Once you pass their threshold for like it has to be right, they'll send it and it'll go into the database, and then Barnes & Noble will have it, and everybody will have it. So whether you ever actually sell anything through Smashwords or not, it is a good system, and it doesn't cost you anything.
No, well, it doesn't cost you anything to go to any other.
I thought you were saying that somebody was charging you $100.
No, well, that's BookBaby, and what they do is that you send them a file, and they convert it to everybody for you.
Okay.
And they will also approach. So, say you're having a problem with Amazon. You don't have to then email Amazon's customer support. BookBaby will do it for you, and they get a much faster reaction time.
As an interface.
Right, and so Smashwords is free, but also just because I know several of my indie writer pals that are actually arguing a lot right now with Smashwords because they're not getting any money from Smashwords. So, do your research. Google is your friend. And there's lots of different services that you can use for both print on demand and uploading your books directly. I'm a big fan of uploading directly to either Barnes & Noble or Amazon because then Smashwords doesn't take their cut too.
Yeah.
It's Lulu spelled like L-U-L-U.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Whenever each of you have been approaching your book, have any of you actually used an editor other than yourself, or are you going direct out the door?
No, we had an actual editor, which is good because my author can't spell. His spelling is atrocious. We actually had a real editor go over it.
So is there a specific service you're using, or just an individual you know?
I have 2 different editors because my output is so fast that I can't have just one. I made the mistake of not having an editor in the beginning, and it showed. And then last December, I hit my first bestseller list. And then I said, oh, I better get serious about this because I'm on a bestseller list. And so then I hired an editor, she went over, and occasionally stuff slips through and people will point it out, and as soon as they pick stuff out, we fix it and everything like that. But do yourself a favor and hire an editor. You are not your editor. Don't ever think you are your editor, or you will come off like all of those other people who couldn't get past a slush pile and publish their book just because they can.
Yeah, I noticed one of the problems, A, is like I said, he can't spell. He can do a grocery list and misspell it. But, oh yeah, you see some of the emails, it's hilarious. But also, you tend to be blinded by your, this is my baby, you know, and you don't see your own mistakes. Because you've read it so many times as you're doing it, that your brain no longer sees anything wrong. And you need a fresh pair of eyes to go, what the heck were you doing there? You know, so, give it to my
My editor is actually sitting right in the back there. We should all give him a round of applause.
That's the lady in the nice straight jacket. Was that the guy in the nice straight jacket? Yeah.
Yeah, and to your point, I think you definitely need an editor. Although I would like to point out, editor can mean two different things.
Yes.
When we say editor, sometimes we mean, does the story work? Do we care about these characters? An outside perspective because you're too close and you can miss, like, that this plot doesn't even make sense. And then there's the guy who literally says, okay, you misspelled this word, and you need a semicolon here, dude, and Oxford comma.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
There's two different gigs.
Yeah,
Copy
that's
editor.
the difference between a copy editor and a content editor.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's important to know the difference.
Yes.
I think if you had to choose one, you probably have both, but if you had to choose one, definitely the proofread editor, the copy editor,
Oh, yeah.
because you can use like beta readers and some other techniques to try to get around the, but ideally you have both.
Yeah, and
Does
that's
everybody
that's
know
what
the
you
term
do.
beta reader? Okay, a beta reader, for those of you who don't know,
Forgive
a
me,
beta
yeah.
reader is basically a close friend, acquaintance, family member whose opinion you respect, to be honest with you, who will read your book and say, yeah, this character doesn't work for me or anything, respectfully, not just like, oh, your book sucks, you shouldn't write.
And you really do need an outsider that doesn't know what your stuff is, because like, oh, because you're talking about your own stuff to your friends. You go, this is my character. They do this and this, and so they kind of know them. It's kind of like you're talking about your neighbors or your friends. But you need to give it to somebody who's never seen your stuff before and doesn't know what the heck anything is. And can you read this? Can you make sense of this? Well, okay then. You know. But,
Yeah.
At the same time, if you're writing science fiction and they've never read any science fiction, but they're into romance novels, they might not be a good beta reader for
Yeah.
you.
No.
Just saying.
No, those are the same thing. You choose your beta readers with the same care as you choose an editor, you know, because pick somebody that you can work with.
Yeah.
Because these are professional relationships, but they're also kind of like spousal relationships too.
yeah, you do really need to know somebody that actually knows the genre at least somewhat. I mean, somebody. I don't mean like John Q. Public, because John Q. Public. I notice that the general perception of the public out there doesn't really know what the genre is about, because you tell them it's fantasy, they automatically think everything that has the term fantasy, oh, it's 15th century or earlier. No, there's modern fantasy, because the stuff we have is all modern, but it's like, you know, science fiction is not always the future in space. It's fiction about science. But John Q. Public automatically assumes it's going to be a space opera. So you have to be really careful when you find somebody who's going to be reading this stuff. Go, do you know the genre? Is it all you read? Have you read anything other than like the Chevy manual for your car? You know, or do you know what we're talking about? You know, because you know, if you're expecting, I'm not doing science fiction, but if I did science fiction and it's not what you're expecting, like, you know, the guys watch Star Trek, you've seen Star Wars. No, this is something different. It is actually science fiction or whatever. You're gonna have a problem. You're gonna get somebody that doesn't understand it. You know,
I was just thinking about having a beta mechanic. You've read the Chevy manual for your car, huh? Can I come over?
Do you have another question?
Yes, for getting an editor and you don't have a lot of money and you don't really have anyone who can read it without saying, oh, it sucks, how do you go about doing that?
There are people out there who will read your work. I would say the first step for you, what it sounds like, is join a writer's group.
Yep.
They can be good or they can be bad, but I would say that's the first step. And if you don't like it, if it doesn't work out, find another one.
Yep.
And keep working until you find some. Because if you don't have the money, these are going to be a good class of potential beta readers, and also maybe someone willing to try to proofread it. Again, if you have the money, hire a professional, but if money's the issue, first thing, writer's group.
The other thing is there's a lot of, coming off of just having gone to Worldcon, there's a lot of people now who are starting to branch out and do freelance editing, but they don't have any clients. And so they may be willing to cut you a deal because they're young and hungry and they want to be editors, but there's not enough editing jobs to go around, so they're trying to build a clientele. You know, again, Google is your friend, and you can check out you can just check that kind of stuff out online. The other thing is there's a great resource at Bain Publishing, because they have the Bain Bar, which is a huge forums where people can put their stuff up, and there's lots of conversations, and sometimes Bain even hires writers out of their slush pile from their forums, which is how I met Jim Mintz. So,
Let's jump.
Well, I've worn 3 different hats having to do with this conversation, and I wanted to ask about that, because I have done freelance and paid editing for different things, but what I saw was one of the same obstacles from the bookstore side and from the library side. There's so much badly done self-published work that they don't want to touch it.
Yep.
And I work full-time for a library now, and we just won't handle self-published work unless there's something really special about it, because so much is really bad.
Yeah.
And that's even though we've carried some self-published work since the 80s, it still follows Sturgeon's law, only worse, because whereas 90% of everything is bad, 95% of self-published stuff is bad.
I think you could say 99%. No one up here, of course.
Oh, no.
No, we're all awesome.
well, in the conversation, I just want to throw this in the conversation between traditional published and self-published, it's the same quality. The problem is with self-published, our slush pile gets published, and in traditional publishing,
Yes.
their slush pile doesn't.
Yeah.
And so it's
That's
all
true.
the same quality of writing, you just have to sift through a little
Yeah,
bit.
and I think, and this is gonna sound mean, but it's like, and there's a lot of, I'm sorry, there's a lot of stuff that's traditionally published that's crap, but unfortunately, a lot of it is part of a series or part of a set, and it has a rabid fan base that doesn't give a crap.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the 25th book in the series, it sucks rocks, but they're gonna sell it because they had all of the other 24.
Yeah.
So you have that problem, and if it's self-published and it's bad, there's nothing for it to fall back on. It's like, well, it doesn't have a fan base yet, so you go, this is genuinely bad.
Another thing about sort of the self-publishing world, obviously, is the fact that, you know, whenever the doors kind of first open, there's only a handful of people out there that are able to kind of get out there and get publicly visible. But now, there's a flood. I mean, everybody and their dog has a self-published book or what have you. So, have any of you learned a specific trick, or you're doing things that seem to be improving your visibility that most people might not be aware of?
We actually have a website for the book, which was kind of cool. That was fun. Even before the book came out, so this is what we have. I think there was 2 chapters in there for free. And it's kind of fun. It's still up, so. It also does a lot of shorts. It also has a lot of shorts on WordPress. I couldn't think of the website here for a lot of short stories and things as well, if you want to see what else the guy does. But it's kind of cool. And I don't know about here, because I live on the other end of the country, but we have a huge bookstore at home that wants locally produced stuff. It's like, so I illustrated it, so it's local enough for them, so they accepted it. So, which was cool.
That's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Sort of the community.
They have a whole section in the bookstore of Kentucky authors and illustrators, so.
Do you have any
Oh,
suggestions, advice?
build your online presence before you publish. Self-publishing or traditional publishing, either way you go.
Yeah.
Build that up. The other thing is find other like-minded writers. For example, I wanted to leverage more of the power of the science fiction, fantasy, horror fan-based community, which I belong to one of the other indie writer groups, and they didn't get the power of this community and how, you know, that we kind of coined the term fan from fanatic. And so I started a group of other indie genre guys that I was like, hey, your stuff is pretty good, my stuff is pretty good, let's talk. So if you want, you can go to genreunderground.com, finding you the very best and innovative indie science fiction, fantasy, and horror. So, and for those of you who have
Right.
have stuff, you know, talk to me over the weekend, and we'll see about getting you guys involved. But in